Hello friends of the green world, hello Hattrick friends. I'm Uncle Jack, and I welcome you to this video tutorial for Easy Hattrick Manager, your new assistant in Hattrick. It currently has two main features. One is designed for the past, allowing you to save the status of your players and your squad week by week, creating a history you can consult whenever you want. The second major feature is designed for the future, a souped-up training planner with a module that lets you calculate the best lineup and ratings you can achieve with that plan. So now that the introductions are out of the way, let me show you. To access it, go to the CHP Products community, select Manager Assistance, and it will appear first. Click on it, and you'll be able to access the website. The first time you're here, you'll need to register. You'll have to define a username and password. I recommend that it's not the same username as your Hattrick username. We need to grant permissions. And if everything goes well, it will detect our Hattrick user and show us the list of teams we currently have. Now we can log in. If you don't remember your Easy Hattrick Manager username and password, you can create another user with a different password, as the data is linked to your Hattrick user, so you won't lose anything. Log in, and the first time you do, you'll see a view similar to this one, where all your players and various information will appear at the top. But let's take it step by step. I'll try to explain each thing a little, starting with the top bar from left to right. First of all, we have a list of projects. Yes, Easy Hattrick Manager is focused on projects. I'll explain later how we can define and customize them to our liking. Then we have two options, as I mentioned. The first is the player view, which allows us to consult the history, and the second is the planner. We'll talk about the planner later. Perfect. We're still here in the middle. The timeline shows the current status, that is, the timestamp, the current state of what we see on the screen. This option allows us to consult the history. We have 6 buttons that allow us to travel week by week, season by season, or go to the beginning and end of the data we have saved. Initially, when you log in, you won't have a history. You'll only have the data for the week you registered. But as time passes, as weeks and seasons go by, you'll be able to access the history. You can also move through the timeline using the left and right arrow keys on your keyboard. We can move week by week, or season by season, forward, backward, go to the beginning, go to the end, whatever you want. Oh, let me explain further. Then we have a section to filter players. We don't always want to see all the players, and this feature allows us to filter them and only show the ones we're interested in. There are two filtering modes: inclusive mode, which works by only showing the selected players, and exclusive mode, which works in reverse, showing all players by default except those we select. Similar to player filtering, the next option is sorting. It also has two modes, ascending and descending. We can choose criteria similar to Hattrick's sorting, such as category, jersey number, name, nickname, ID, age, salary, form, potential, HTMS ability, each of the skills, and training. Whatever you want. Finally, we have the main menu. Here you'll find your username. There are 3 options: language, currency, and date format. By default, it uses Hattrick's values, but if you want to change it to another language or anything else, you can. Now, since we're on this menu, there are 2 flags that these flags allow you to show or hide information about your players. The first one is for hiding training information. This refers to the little colors you see here, for example in the plays section, since I entered plays this week. If you disable it, this information won't be displayed. Interestingly, these colors are stronger or lighter depending on the training percentage. In this case, this player has trained 100%, so the color is bright and full. And for this player, they've only trained 50%, so it's a lighter green. The other flag is for showing or hiding sublevels. We can disable it, and the 2 decimal places for each sublevel of each skill will no longer appear. This includes form, stamina, and also the HTMS calculation, taking the sublevels into account. At the beginning, when you start and don't have much historical data, it will always show 00. The calculation of sublevels is done through training and is updated when there is an increase or decrease in skill once a player is in our team, and it adjusts over time. If we go back to the very beginning, here we can see if we're progressing. We see what's happening and their value is increasing. Okay, one more thing. When there's a visible increase, we mark it with this little arrow. If there's a decrease, we mark it too. And that's how we see the evolution of our squad. The weeks are added up, and it shows us the intensity and endurance of the week's training. And here appears a graph with the accumulated training. If we switch from fullback to another type of training, here it shows, after 50 weeks of fullback training, I started with plays, then I trained passing, continued with plays, spent a week on passing, continued with plays, and so on, and here we are. In the central section, you'll See the coach alongside the staff, their individual levels, the coach type, neutral, offensive, defensive, and their leadership level. This module also includes some basic statistics on the total number of players. This takes the filter into account. You can see the TSI, Team Score Index, total salary and average salaries, average age, average form, stamina, and experience. There's more. Yes, continuing with the menu, there's the Manage Project section. We'll go into it later, and there are more options. Update data. Okay, as I said, the Team Manager is for lazy people. It automatically updates the data weekly. So this option is a manual one in case of an extreme server outage or something, and the data hasn't been updated. You can then manually perform the update. I'll try it, but by default you don't need to do it. As I said, it does it automatically, and if everything goes well, it shows you this message that appeared here on the screen. The next option is a data download. This is essentially a backup of all the information that EasyAdd Trip Manager has for your devices. It's in JSON format, and I know it's a bit technical, but anyway, here's all your historical data. What else do we have? An option to log out. You can simply log out, and if you share a PC or anything with another user, you can log in with that other user. Then we have a section with different links to the manual in case you have any questions. Although you can consult the manual itself, which explains everything more or less. And a link to the forum. If there's a backlog or any questions, you can consult the forum. Here I have two main sections, one in Spanish, the other in English, and a third section with screenshots. Anything, any bad translation, any questions, you can come here and write to me. A link to the source code. Hey, I've updated it, I'm not hiding anything, you can check it out, and if you have any questions, just ask me. Here's a link to my profile, and finally a link to donations. This is my hobby. It's always going to be free, but if you want to contribute, you're welcome to. It'll help me with website maintenance, hosting, and allow me to keep developing the tool. Okay, project management is still pending. Let's get to it. Okay, what's the idea behind this? The idea is that, as Hattrick users, especially those of us who have been around for many years, the current status isn't always what we're interested in seeing. Historically, you might have reset, started a new project, changed the team's concept, and this section allows you to display the data the way you actually want to see it. You can also use it to have a section for "I'll make it up," forwards, and another section for defenders, for example. This also works for a project, which is a team associated with a specific time period. In this case, I previously created a 100% Youth Academy project. I have the data saved, and I want that Youth Academy project to be displayed. Okay. To do this, I'm going to modify the current one. This project would be called Conugam 5.0. And to show the data from my previous project, I'm going to add a new row, select the team, and call it Conugam 4.0. Here, I define the time frame I want it to show. I know I started season 54 and finished the project, so I'm marking it as having an end date. I finished it in season 73, week 15 to be more precise. And that's it. This way, the first 3 projects will be updated weekly, and this last one won't be updated. It will simply show the time range between the selected start and end dates. We save the changes and go back. And now, in the project list, I see Conugam 5.0 and Conugam 4.0. If we select it, here we have all the data from my previous project. As we can see, I finished it in 2023, and if we go back to the very beginning, I started it in September 2017. I should mention that both the player filtering and sorting information is saved at the project level, which allows us to play around with it. We can have projects with only forwards, past projects that only show a certain set of players, and so on. Okay, I have one more thing regarding players. The information is similar to Hattrick. The idea was to make a copy. As I said, the sublevels appear in green, and the visual level is shown in black. Here we see a little arrow indicating a level drop. And I have one more thing to explain. The skills graph. For this, I'd like to go to a specific player. My good friend Antonio. And this icon here allows us to go to the graph mode. Okay. Basically, it's another way to visualize historical player data, and here it shows all the level increases and decreases. By default, it shows the skills. We can play around with what we want to show and what we don't. We can cross out the skills and show the form and stamina. We can show typical manager characteristics like leadership and experience. What else do we have? The HTMS. No, sorry, salary, and TSI. Here it is, HTMS, which represents both skill level and potential. This way, we can see the evolution. And finally, you can't see it because My face is covering it, but we can select the training percentage. And here we can see that I trained this player a lot at the beginning, and then I didn't train him as much. Okay, I think it's time to go to the training planner. To do this, I'm going to go to my current project and select the training planner option. Okay, how does it work? You could say it has 3 sections: an initial section for selecting training stages and a players section where all players are displayed. Filters also work in this section, meaning we can select only the players we're interested in. For this plan are applied. Just like the sorting, we can also sort by different criteria, depending on how we want to view them. The sorting will be important. I'll explain that later. Okay, that would be the second section, and the last section would be the alignment and rating section, which, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, will allow us to estimate how far the team can go with the selected plan. Okay, how does the first section work? Well, you simply have to add training stages. Let's imagine I want to train the current squad. This is just an example, for 5 seasons of plays and then 5 seasons of defense. Okay, to do this, you simply add stages. By default, 1 season is selected, and as I said, I want 5 seasons of plays and then 5 seasons of defense. Very good. We can expand the players, and here it shows us what our player would look like at the end of this plan. Here, a slider appears where we can select the percentage of participation for that player in that training stage. But we'll go into more detail later. That would be one way to do it. There are many, but I'd like you to look at one detail, which is these overall statistics. Here you can see the total salaries paid for the selected players and this plan. We see that it consists of 160 weeks of training and 10 seasons. And here it shows us the end date of this plan, which in this case would be April 2029. I wanted to add this because one of the important things is controlling the squad's salaries. And with this, we can control them. I mean, I know it's not the same, but we can change the order of the stages and see how much that plan would cost us. In this case, if, for example, we change the order between this play and this defense, then instead of paying 70 million, we go on to pay 68. And if we change it again, we go down to 67. And if we change it again, we go down to 67.21. And if we change it yet again, we go up to 67,200. So let's say this option would be more economical. We do the same thing. Look, we've gone down 65. Here it was 64,600, 64,800. This is a little cheaper. 63. Here it's more expensive. 62. Which is more expensive, right? Cheaper. 62,400, 62,300. If we move this forward, 62. 66.99. Then we end up with something like this. In the end, we will have trained 5 seasons of play and 5 seasons of defense. With one order we had 70 million, with this other order 62 million. Good. These stages can be customized. Each link represents a season, and it allows me to play with them, but they can also be combined. So instead of having 3 stages for 1 season, I can have 1 for 3 seasons. Does that make sense? If I choose 3 seasons here, it's the same. We can also combine these 2 for plays. The same goes for these 2 for defense. And these 2 for initial plays. Okay, let's look at the players. As I said, in this second section, we see the player currently on the left, and on the right we see the player after receiving all this training. Similarly, if we hover over the plan, we can see how it evolves week by week. Here, there's a little star with a yellow band. This indicates the player's prime, which is when they have the highest HTMS skill. Of course, here it shows that the player's prime is at the end of all the training. He's still young, he's 31 years old. If we add training stages, we see that the prime player, as soon as they start to lose skill, gets moved. For example, after all that, let's add 2 seasons of passes, for example. The prime player has still been moved, and after that, we'll train them for 2 more seasons, set-piece seasons. Right? He's already 33.58 days old, okay? And after 2 more set-piece seasons, we'd move on to 35 years and 58 days. And we see that the prime player is here at 33 years and 58 days old. And that happens with all the players. Okay, one important detail, when adding stages, the percentage of participation is automatically added in order according to the type of training. For example, in set pieces, we know that in 1 week, 6 players will train at 100%. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And up to 4 more will train at 50%, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hence the importance of the order when making this plan. If you have the correct order, then only the percentage you want to train will be included. In defense, since 10 players train each week and I have 10 players, They all train at 100%. The same applies to passing and set pieces. If I were to add 2 goalkeeping seasons, for example, when adding goalkeeping, only 2 players, as we know, train at 100%. So player 1 and the player who has set the 100% will be at 100%. And from the third player down, it's 0%. You can also change the percentages as you wish. I'm going to remove this stage. Okay, with this, I've explained the definition of stages, how they affect the players, and now we'll move on to calculating the best lineup. We can hide the players, and here we'll calculate the best lineup. It's a slow calculation. Oh, here you have 2 options. Either calculate it manually, run it, or have it recalculate for each change made. For that, you have to select Auto Refresh. Well, in this case, we'll run it manually. As I said, it's a slow calculation, since it calculates the best lineup for each week. And this would be the result. Otherwise, if we move the cursor away from here, it defaults to the best week, which in this case would be week 170. And we see the results for week 170. Look, with the selected training, this would be the best possible lineup, and we'd get HT stats of 450. Okay. Just like above, the prime stat is highlighted in yellow, and this module allows us to play. So if we follow this plan, we get these HT stats. Look, I'm going to activate Auto Refresh. And instead of training defense for 3 seasons, I'll just make it up and train goalkeeper for 3 seasons. I know it doesn't make sense, but logically the HT stats with this other plan should be lower. And indeed, with the other plan, we got 450, and with this new plan, we only reach 441, and we've had the prime stat for 11 weeks. If we change it again, if instead of focusing on goalkeeping, well look, I want a lot more passing. Let's see what happens. It recalculates. Okay, so this would be the result. We get a prime player earlier, in week 165, but we only reach 430 HT stats. And to calculate the best lineup, we have the typical parameters, the same ones as the Hattrick simulator, right? Well, the same. We can select the criteria. I recommend HT stats. For the formation, we can have it calculate only which one is the best, or select a specific one. And then the rest of the parameters are the same as in Hattrick. I think that's all. Oh, I don't know if I've forgotten anything, have I? In any case, I encourage you to try it. Anything else, like on the forum, or send me an HTL, and I'll try to answer your questions. And that's it. See you soon.